Thank you for watching the Being Healthy is Cool YouTube channel. My name is Theo, but you can call me the Exit Sign Editor because I help people integrate their human experiences instead of escape from them. So let's forget what we think we know about health and instead live in wellness. Now today I'm kicking off my DBT lesson series, my Essential DBT lesson series, with my personal favorite lesson, the cognitive cycle. Now the cognitive cycle is a way to visualize and process our triggers, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So it can be thought of as a coping skill, but I think it really goes beyond that. That's why it has its own video. Now, a quick disclaimer before I get into the cognitive cycle is if you're someone who's asking me, where do my thoughts come from? That's going to be a whole different channel, okay? So there are some people who have religious and spiritual beliefs that, they want to know where their thoughts come from. What are my thoughts? Stuff like that. We're not going to be discussing that, but if you believe in the widely accepted meaning of consciousness and that it is our mental processes and it exists in our brain, then this video is for you. So before we get into the cognitive cycle and learning the cognitive cycle, let's talk a little bit about triggers. Now, as you probably know, for individuals, a trigger can be anything. And I like to put them into two different categories though. Avoidable triggers and unavoidable triggers. So avoidable triggers are people, places, and things that you consciously associate with trauma. So if you have problems with alcohol or need to avoid alcohol, going to a bar is something that you can choose to avoid, right? If there's a situation that involves a person, place, or thing that is going to make you relive a trauma or put you in a dangerous situation in your recoveries, or even that's just going to make you feel like you're in a bad negative place, that is an avoidable trigger. But unavoidable triggers can be anything. We're going to get into internal, external, and sensory. So any unavoidable or avoidable triggers can be internal, external, or sensory. But unavoidable triggers are going to come up. So that's why I made this video, is because we need to be prepared when they come up. For some people, an external trigger could be like a certain street in town that they drive down. It could be a color. It could be anything that someone says. It could be anything that we experience in our environment. So sometimes you never know what people's triggers are. Sometimes you don't even know what your triggers are until you experience them. And it could take you years sometimes to realize that something's been triggering you. But internal triggers are more of, independent thoughts and feelings that you have more automatically. So these could be feelings of insecurity. These could be feelings of separation, loneliness, stuff like that. Okay, any kind of feelings that are negatively affecting you are internal triggers when they don't come from directly something that you observed or that happened to you in your environment at that time. Now, sensory triggers are also external triggers, but they have a particularly quick way of getting to us because we react to sounds, smells, sights, and touches and stuff like that very quickly. So a lot of people who are in recovery from alcohol or drugs, the sound of a bottle popping open, a bag crumpling up, because that could be associated with using. So sensory triggers involve our senses. So now getting into the cognitive cycle, some people think that it's unprofessional for a counselor or for a support group facilitator or a speaker or a writer to talk about their personal experiences. But I disagree with that. And I'm not getting paid for this video anyway. And this is just a free example for you guys, but the cognitive cycle is extremely transformational and it changed my life. Out of all the lessons that I've learned in DBT throughout the years of being in therapy myself, off and on, the cognitive cycle is the first one I like to teach to people, even when traditionally they'll teach you boundaries first, or they'll teach you coping skills first. This one's particularly powerful for me. So here's a little picture of the cognitive cycle, a representation. The interesting thing is that most people, when something happens to them in their environment, or even if it's an internal trigger, they think that they go straight to feelings and emotion. Or maybe they even go straight to reacting or responding with a behavior by saying something or by doing something to themselves by doing an unhealthy coping mechanism. But that's not true. So the science that we are observing today, and I'm helping you be aware of today, is that there is a cognitive, a thinking process that happens when you encounter a trigger, whether it's one that you were expecting or one that you weren't expecting. So the first process of the cognitive cycle is a trigger, experiencing a trigger, whether it's internal or external. The second one is having a certain thought about it. So before you have a feeling, if you think of right now something that bothers you or a trigger or a situation that's difficult, it's so easy to feel that feeling, right? It feels so immediate. But I want you to take a second and think of an example of something affecting you right now and focus on that feeling. Is it sadness? Is it loneliness? Is it separation? Is it shame? Is it guilt? Okay. Focus on that feeling for a second. But now, if you take a step backwards, you can identify a thought that's associated with that feeling. Okay? So there is a thought that is associated with that feeling. So I'm going to be talking about a personal example right now. In my life, in my past, I was in a relationship, and it was a boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing. Okay? This video is not about associating blame to anybody for the events following that time in my life. But I struggled heavily with this. This was a very difficult yet rewarding time in my life because I learned so much about myself, and I learned about what kind of inner work I need to be doing to take care of myself before anybody's going to benefit from being in a relationship with me, and before I'm going to benefit from being in a relationship with someone else. I'm someone who has struggled with addictions. I'm someone who has struggled with all kinds of stuff. So I had enough on my plate already, but adding this relationship to me, I kind of took on so much at once, and I was so overwhelmed. But in the end, it was very traumatic, but I worked through it. So I ended up being in a group therapy, instead of being locked up or dead or, something negative happening. So I'm really grateful for that experience. I just want to say that. But one day I was in therapy, and it was time to do the cognitive cycle, and my therapist was asking for volunteers. And so there was something that had been bothering me for weeks, so I decided to finally bring it up. And the thing that was triggering me was actually a song. Songs can easily trigger people because music is everywhere, and it's such a part of the human experience, right? So the reason why the song triggered me is because I used to spend the night a lot at my ex-partner's house. And in the morning, this was the alarm song that my partner had to wake us up. Now, oftentimes we slept past the alarm anyway, but the first thing that I would hear when I started to wake up throughout the day was this song, okay? I had never actually heard of the song before, come to think of it, before I met my partner. I never heard of it before, so it definitely had that distinction. I had no other association with it besides my ex-partner. So that was an external and sensory trigger, but actually it progressed into being an internal trigger, because not only sometimes when I hear it on radio stations or commercials, it didn't come up a lot because it was kind of an older song, but it actually became more of an internal trigger because it was stuck in my head. So for weeks and months, actually, this song was stuck in my head, and I hadn't told anybody about it until I went to therapy. Now, there was this one time my friend actually played it, and I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting my friend to know that song, but I'm like, hey, can we listen to something else? And I don't remember if that was before or after I went to therapy and was walked through the cognitive cycle. Now, this might not resonate with everybody, but some people actually need a friend or a support system to walk them through this process like I did. So if you want to do that with me, I'm more than willing to take your call, do an email with you, do a session with you, and help you walk through this process with a situation or event or trigger that's affecting you negatively right now, okay? So getting into my story, I said, okay, this song has been bothering me. It really been bothering me. It's playing through my head, and I can't make it stop. And so my therapist said, okay, I'm sure you have many feelings about it. I'm sure it makes you feel a certain way, and it's been making you feel a certain way for weeks or months. But what are your thoughts when you hear this song? What are the thoughts that come up, even if you have to dig for them, that are associated with this song? So I said my thoughts were, okay, nothing has changed. I've made no progress since exiting this relationship. But my thought was, it's my fault that this relationship was over. And this is interesting. I thought that if I had been a healthier person at the time, then that person would have wanted to stay with me. They would have wanted to be with me if I was different and if I was healthier and did certain things. My thoughts were, I had something good. I really cared about this person. I really did. But I thought that I had something good and that I messed it up. And I also thought that I'm never going to be, because I'm damaged, but I'm also never going to be desirable for another person to be with. And I thought that I was never going to be capable mentally, emotionally, to be in another relationship and to benefit from it. So I thought I was going to be alone, right? So that's a lot of thoughts I had. But what are my feelings now that I had those thoughts? What are the feelings that I had been having for months because of experiencing this trigger? You could be, if you're listening to this, maybe you've been experiencing a trigger your whole life. So hopefully this cycle helps you. But I had those thoughts. I experienced a trigger in my head, this song in my head, or in my environment, and then I had these thoughts. Now, because of those thoughts and that experience and the way I was thinking about it, I had these feelings. So there is a process there. I had the thoughts first, even if my conscious mind skipped over them, made me think that there wasn't a thought associated with it. My feelings now were of failure. My feelings were of inadequacy. My feelings were of shame. My feelings were of anxiety. I felt miserable. I felt suicidal. I felt like I had no purpose in life, okay? When you make plans with somebody and you think it's a good thing that you're with them, the hardest thing for me being in that relationship was actually the sense of that I was being put in situations to where I questioned my own judgment so much and had to think so hard, and I questioned my inner knowing and my intuition. And I'm someone, if you know me, who's very sure of myself most of the time. Now, I'm the kind of person who will change my mind about something and adopt new belief systems and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure of myself most of the time. I'm a doer a lot, okay? And that can put me in all kinds of positive and negative situations. Ghost, be careful. That was my cat. She almost broke my mom's face. Okay. But, at this time in my life, my friends and families were telling me certain things about my relationship and about my health that I wasn't listening to. I was listening to my own voice inside, inner voice. So I was confused and I didn't know who to believe about certain stuff. But anyway, I was feeling miserable in this relationship and after this relationship. So what were my behaviors? My behaviors were obsessing over rerunning in my head all the things I said and did and could have done and didn't do about how I could have saved the relationship. And all of those memories, that really haunted me for a while, good and bad. I would text my ex-partner in desperation and try to get more answers out of them. Why this? Why that? I would just panic and shut down and freeze, not do much of anything throughout my day. I would isolate myself, be unresponsive to people when they tried to talk to me. And so that's where I would use drugs. So my behaviors are really unhealthy. So I talked about this in therapy and I got all of this off my chest and I was like, okay, now I'm in a really dark place because I just talked about all this. It's almost like I was reliving the trauma. I was like, how is this helpful? But it ended up being helpful because my therapist walked me through the process again. But she said, okay, let's experience this trigger. It's not like she played the song or anything, but she said, you experienced the trigger and then you had thought about it. You told me all those thoughts you had before, but let's think about this differently. Let's separate yourself and think about one positive thing that you can think of that happened because of that situation, or that happened because you experienced that trigger, so that situation is brought up. So it can be about experiencing the trigger or about that situation. This might be difficult to think of, but I eventually did. After I thought about it, at first I said there's nothing positive about it, okay? But I thought more. And even if it's not a positive sunshine and rainbows feeling thought, it could be maybe a thought that doesn't assign blame to yourself. That's very freeing. Or a thought that doesn't assign blame to anybody. A thought that gives the situation purpose. So maybe one of those thoughts for you and for me could be, this had a reason to it. This had a purpose for my learning experience as a person. So my thoughts now, I said, okay, it's over. That relationship is over, and I acknowledge that. It wasn't healthy. So even if I wanted to stay in it, it wasn't healthy. So maybe it's a good thing that it's over. It's a good thing that it's over because I was in an unhealthy situation and now I'm removed from it. But first I thought that if I would have done something or been different or been more healthy, then that person would have wanted to stay with me. When I said that, my therapist put me on the spot and she said, what evidence do you have to support that? What evidence? Do you have any evidence to support the fact that if you were healthy, then they would have wanted to stay with you? And I thought about it for a while and I was like, I guess I don't. I guess you're right. I don't have any evidence because they probably would have broken up with me anyway. Okay. And this had to do with an incompatibility. I was trying to make something happen that wasn't healthy because me and this person were incompatible. And it's not about blaming. It's about incompatibility. You have certain needs, they have certain needs. You're not able to meet each other's needs. That's an incompatibility. And it's hard to accept, but you might have gone through the same thing. But anyway, my thoughts were a little bit more freeing now. I said, maybe it's a good thing that it's over. Maybe I could even get to the point of saying that I'm proud of myself for getting through that. And this relationship and this experience made me a better person. Now, I didn't just lose my partner. I lost most of my friends too. So this was still things that I'm still grieving about this. Okay. I'm not saying that my cognitive cycle cured me or made me better, completely better, but it helped me. It might have saved my life too. It might have helped me a lot. But I started to have these positive thoughts about it. And I said, okay, well, I have negative thoughts about it. What if I can have one thought that doesn't assign blame to myself, or that's a little bit positive? So, okay, it's over, and that's a good thing that it's over, even though part of me so much wanted it to continue to happen. So what are my feelings now? Okay, I had some positive thoughts. I went through this whole cycle having negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative behaviors. So now I had some positive thoughts, even if I just had one. That was, I'm stronger now that it's over. What are my feelings now? I'm feeling growth. I felt like, oh, maybe I have grown. So I'm feeling proud of myself. I'm feeling relieved too. And I'm feeling hopeful about maybe if I got through this and I'm in therapy talking about this and I'm starting to feel a little bit better, maybe one day I will benefit from being in a relationship, which, by the way, that did happen for me. So I'm proving my past self wrong when I said all that stuff. Okay, so having one positive thought, a lot of DBT and CBT, all that therapy has to do with changing the way that you think. We have what's called cognitive distortions in thinking that leads us to unhealthy circumstances. So I had these feelings, these new feelings of free feelings, of being proud of myself, of relief, of acceptance. That's big. That was a big change. And that's all happened for me in one day. It took time for me to process it, but I never heard our thoughts and feelings and behaviors being thought of in this way, in such a process. Okay, I thought it was all, I just have feelings and I'm doomed. Okay, so my behaviors now were, you know what, I'm going to go reward myself. I'm the kind of person who likes to reward myself. Maybe I go buy myself a smoothie, or I go take myself on a date, write myself a love letter. I do something fun. We learn the most when we're having fun in life. Now, into a little bit of backstory about me, I used to wet my bed a lot when I was little. Not even so little, okay? I used to wet my bed a lot growing up. And my mom used to have a calendar and mark days on the calendar, the days I didn't wet my bed. So if I got a certain amount of days, I would get a prize or go to the dollar store, get a few things when I was little to help me, positive reinforcement. I'm still that kind of person. not that wet's the bed, but I'm still the kind of person who keeps track of my days of sobriety, who celebrates my small victories. That's what this channel is all about, celebrating your small victories, even how small you think they are. They all add up. So, but yeah, my behaviors now that I'm having these positive thoughts and feelings about a traumatic thing that happened to me and that triggered me is maybe I'm going to integrate my experience like I am right now. Now, instead of isolating, I'm going to tell the world about it. I'm going to walk somebody else. I've walked so many people through the cognitive cycle now that I've felt better about myself. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to go do something fun. I'm going to go adopt a pet. I'm going to go give myself to the world. I'm going to not stop hiding. And you're going to do the same thing. You are going to do the same thing. This process will really help you. I'll leave a picture somewhere online where you can find it, where you can look at this process. It was really great. The cognitive cycle has helped me a lot. I hope it helps you a lot. Remember that you are a survivor. You are a being healthy is cool wildcat. So you know how to survive, and you are enough right now. Thank you for watching this show. My name is Theo once again. We're going to learn how to live in wellness, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Your feelings are attached to the thoughts you already had. Your feelings are attached to the thoughts you already had. Change those thoughts. Feel a feeling. Feel a feeling. There is a thought associated with it. There is a thought associated with it. There is a thought associated with it. And you don't have to do it alone. I can't promise you a cure, but I can promise you that I care. And I'm not the only one. So sometimes you might need a friend or support system to help you challenge those thoughts, and that's okay.